So let me elaborate a bit on what Susan just said about learning in the brain. The neuroscientist Eric Kandel conducted groundbreaking research into learning and neural growth, and it led, in fact, to a Nobel Prize. One of Kandel's big insights in studying learning in the brain came from realizing it would be best to study it in an animal with a simple rather than complex nervous system, and one with really big neurons, ones we can actually see with the naked eye. The perfect animal for this was the sea snail. He wanted to see what happened at the neural level when these animals learned in the short term versus the long term. So he administered a single shock to activate short-term learning and saw that the snail learned a defensive response that lasted for about 10 minutes. But if the shock was administered 4 or 5 times, the animal's learned defense was long-term, lasting days. But here's the discovery that led to the Nobel Prize. Kandel was the first neuroscientist to discover how long-term learning happens at the neural level. He discovered there were new proteins in the neurons for long-term learning, but not in the short-term learning. And these new proteins led to new neural structures, in short, to neural growth. Upon further research, Kandel uncovered how these proteins form that led to new neural growth. Let's look at this figure. In this neuron, we see a sensory neuron connected to a motor neuron, and some activating neurotransmitter glutamate being released. This is the baseline. Here, in this figure, we see what happens in short-term learning and memory. When a mild stimulus is presented, more glutamate is released, strengthening the synaptic connection. But note, there's no new neural structures that are growing. Now, in this image, we see what happens in long-term learning and memory in response to a strong stimulus. So many stimuli are being presented. A signal then goes up the axon to the nucleus of the cell, turning on particular genes or set of genes that then synthesize new proteins to form. And these proteins then create new neural structures down here. And even more glutamate is produced and received by the motor neuron. So these new structures and strong synaptic connections stay for days and days, leading to long-term learning and memory. The moral of the story is that long-term learning changes your brain in a way that short-term learning and memory do not, a finding worthy of a Nobel Prize. Now, go out and learn this material and change your brain for good.